Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a film you might not expect to find in a conversation about personal growth.
That's right. Kill Bill.
Yeah, Kill Bill.
Yeah.
Now, when I first saw this movie, uh, back when I was, I think, in high school, it was Uma Thurman as the bride. That raw intensity, I really connected with it.
Interesting. I think for me it was more the visual style.
Oh yeah, the way it just kind of blends everything together.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's dive in. The bride starts from this place of literally being left for dead.
Right.
And then rebuilds her life, her skills, her everything to become this, like, warrior on a mission. It's kind of like a blueprint for personal transformation, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about, revenge, although that is obviously a huge part of the film.
Right.
But it's about starting from nothing and rebuilding. That's like the ultimate habit overhaul.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of habits, there's that incredible training regimen with Pei Mei. Talk about dedication.
Oh, yeah. It's brutal, but there's a method to his madness.
Right.
Remember the scene where he makes her snatch the single leaf from his hand?
Oh, yeah.
He's breaking down a complex skill into these tiny, manageable steps.
Uh-huh.
That's really a core principle in habit formation.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You don't just dive into the most complicated thing right away.
Right.
Like if you're learning to play an instrument.
Exactly. You wouldn't start with a concerto. You start with your scales and your chords, and you build from there.
Yeah. You got to build those skills brick by brick.
Right.
And we see the bride face setbacks, too.
Well,
Like when she's trying to break through that wooden board, she gets so frustrated.
yeah, she doubts herself.
But she keeps going.
She keeps going, and that's resilience, and, it's so crucial for habit building.
Absolutely.
We all hit those roadblocks. We all have those moments where we want to give up. The key is to just bounce back.
I've definitely had those moments myself where I'm trying to build some kind of new habit, and I just completely faceplant. But then I think back to that scene, and I think, well, she could break through a board with her bare fist after being buried alive.
Yeah.
I can at least resist that extra cookie.
Exactly. It's all about shifting that mindset.
Yeah.
Those setbacks, they're not failures, they're just learning opportunities.
Okay, so one other thing that's really interesting is that the bride, she doesn't do this all alone.
Right.
She has mentors, allies, even enemies,
She does, yeah.
and they all kind of teach her something.
Yeah, that's a good point. We often think about habit building as the solo thing,
Yeah.
but it's not. You need a support system. You need people to challenge you, to guide you.
It's like her relationship with Pei Mei. I mean,
Yeah.
he's tough, he's demanding.
Scary.
Yeah, a little scary. But he sees her potential, and he pushes her.
Right. He doesn't just tell her what she wants to hear, but what she needs to hear.
Exactly. It's like that personal trainer for your habits.
Mhm.
Now, it's not just about, mastering physical skills for the bride. It's about reclaiming her identity and her agency. And that ties into some really interesting feminist themes in the film.
It does, yeah. She's not just fighting to survive, she's fighting to define herself.
And that's so powerful because it tells us that we all have this power to shape our own narratives, to break free from these expectations that might be holding us back.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the bride's training her resilience, her self-discovery, and all of these things have these clear parallels to habit building. But let's get practical here.
Okay.
How can we take these lessons from Kill Bill and actually apply them to our own lives?
Well, I think one of the first things is, think about the bride's laser focus on her goal.
Yeah, she never wavers.
She never gets sidetracked. And that's a really good reminder for all of us about setting clear intentions.
Yeah, you got to know exactly what you want to achieve.
Right. And just like she breaks down her training into manageable steps, we can do the same thing with our goals.
Yeah, so instead of saying, I want to run a marathon,
Mhm.
well, maybe it's, I'm going to run for 30 minutes 3 times this week.
Exactly.
Okay, what about setbacks?
Oh, those are inevitable.
Yeah.
We talked about the bride's resilience, but how do we actually cultivate that in ourselves?
Right. How do we do that?
It's self-compassion.
Okay.
It's being okay with stumbling, having bad days. It's about learning from those experiences and then getting back on track.
Well, it's not about beating ourselves up.
No,
Yeah.
it's about viewing those setbacks as feedback.
Okay.
And remember, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
Just like the bride has her mentors and allies, we can seek support from friends, family, even online communities.
Yeah, it's like building your own personal growth team.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got our goals, we've got our plan, we've got our support system. But then there's that next step, right? Like pushing beyond our comfort zone.
Yes, that's so important. Look at her training with Pei Mei. He never let her settle. He pushed her to confront her fears and discover her strengths.
That's where that saying comes from, right?
Yeah.
Growth happens outside your comfort zone.
That's right. And it's true. That's where real transformation happens, when we challenge ourselves.
Yeah, you got to push those limits to discover what you're really capable of.
Right. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our deep dive into Kill Bill and all the surprising things it can teach us about habits.
I know, it's kind of wild, right? Like, who knew a revenge film could be so insightful?
Well, that's the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
You can find these universal truths even in the most unexpected places.
Okay, so in the first part, we really focused on the bride's journey.
Right.
And how it's like this blueprint for personal transformation. But there's also so much visual flair in Kill Bill.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the symbolism, the music. How do those elements tie into the habit-building theme?
That's a great question. I think, the film is a visual feast.
Yeah, it is.
And every detail is carefully chosen. The colors, the music, everything is there to amplify the narrative.
Okay, so let's start with like the most iconic image from the film.
Yeah.
The bride in that yellow jumpsuit.
Oh, yeah. That's become so iconic.
It has, yeah.
But it's not just about aesthetics.
Right.
That yellow jumpsuit is a symbol of transformation.
Oh, well, I like it.
Shedding that old identity and embracing something new.
It's like she's putting on a warrior uniform.
Exactly.
And that really connects to habit building.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's also about creating a new self-image.
It is. It's about creating a new way of being in the world.
And that jumpsuit is like the outward manifestation of that.
Yes.
Now, color is used throughout the film in all sorts of really interesting ways.
Oh, yeah.
Especially to reflect the bride's emotional state.
It does, yeah.
Like those deep blues and greens when she's at the House of Blue Leaves.
Right, yeah.
And then you get those warm oranges and yellows in the desert scenes.
Those shifts are deliberate. Yeah, they mirror her journey from darkness to light.
That's cool.
From despair to hope.
So it's like the colors are literally showing us her inner world.
They are, yeah. And that's important for habit building, too. Being aware of our emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Because our feelings can really sabotage us.
Oh, they totally can.
Or they can propel us forward.
So we got to pay attention to those feelings.
We do.
Okay, and we can't forget the music.
Oh, the music.
Kill Bill has an incredible soundtrack.
It does.
And it really adds to that emotional impact of each scene.
Yes.
Like, I still get chills when I think about that Twisted Nerve whistle theme when Elle Driver walks down the hospital hallway.
Yeah, that's a great example of how music can just heighten the suspense.
Yeah.
And create that atmosphere.
It's like the music is telling a story along with the visuals.
It is. And that brings up a really important point.
Okay.
Habit building isn't just about discipline and willpower.
Right.
It's also about your environment.
Oh, and
So just like the music in Kill Bill sets the tone,
uh-huh.
we can create a soundtrack for our own lives. Surround ourselves with things that inspire us.
Yeah, like having upbeat music while you're working out.
Exactly. Or even a vision board to remind you of your goals.
So it's about setting the stage for success.
It is. Now, we've talked about a lot of the film's visual elements, but we also have to talk about its impact on, culture.
Yeah. Kill Bill was huge.
It was.
It wasn't just a box office hit.
Right.
Like, it sparked all these conversations, it challenged conventions. It's really left its mark on pop culture.
Absolutely. And, it also had a big impact on the way female characters are portrayed in action films.
Oh, for sure.
The Bride just completely shattered that damsel in distress stereotype.
Yeah, she's so much more than that.
Right. She's complex, she's fierce, she's vulnerable.
And that representation is so important.
It is. It inspires us. It challenges our assumptions.
Yeah.
And it expands our understanding of what's possible.
Okay, so we've talked about symbolism, we've talked about music, we've talked about cultural impact.
We have.
Let's bring it back to those practical takeaways.
Okay.
How do we actually use all of this to build better habits?
Well, I think the most important thing is remembering the bride's focus.
Okay,
That unwavering focus on her goal.
She never loses sight of it?
She never does. And that's such a good reminder for us about setting those clear intentions.
Right. Know what you want.
Exactly. And break down those big goals into smaller steps.
Make it manageable.
Yes.
And what about when we hit those inevitable setbacks?
Oh, well, that's where the self-compassion comes in.
Right. Being kind to ourselves.
Yes. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to have a bad day. The key is to learn from it
Yeah.
and just get back on track.
So it's a journey.
It is. It's not a straight line.
Not about perfection.
No. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. Just like the bride has her team, You can build your own support system.
Yeah, friends, family, online communities.
Exactly.
All right, so we've got our goals broken down. We're being kind to ourselves. We've got our cheer squad. What's next?
Well, think about the bride's training with Pei Mei. He pushed her to her limits.
Yeah, he really did.
He didn't let her settle. And that's another important piece of habit building. Pushing beyond your comfort zone.
Because that's where the real growth happens.
It is. It can be scary, but it's also where we discover what we're truly capable of.
So step outside that comfort zone.
Yes.
Okay, deep divers, we're back, and we're ready to wrap up our Kill Bill deep dive.
That's right. We've explored the bride's transformation, her training, her battles, and now we're at the final showdown with Bill.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate test of everything she's learned.
It is. And there's a lot we can unpack here in terms of habit building and personal growth.
Okay, so let's rewind to the beginning of Volin 2.
Okay.
When the bride is buried alive.
Yeah.
That scene is just so powerful.
Oh, it is. And it's such a great metaphor for how trapped we can feel by our old habits.
Yeah, it's like those negative patterns are literally suffocating us.
Right. Burying us alive.
But she gets out.
She does, inch by inch. And it's a reminder that even when we feel completely overwhelmed, we do have the strength to break free.
Yeah, it's that resilience kicking in.
Right, that inner drive to survive.
And as she's digging herself out, it's not just about escaping that physical confinement.
No, it's about shedding those layers of trauma and pain.
Yeah, like it's paving the way for a rebirth.
It is, and that's where the real transformation begins. You know, it's not enough to just break free from the old.
Right.
You have to build something new.
Okay, so we see that rebuilding process happening during her training with Pei Mei, right?
Absolutely. It's demanding, it's grueling, but it's also where she really steps into her power.
Yeah, he teaches her those physical skills, but it's more than that.
Right, mental discipline, emotional control,
Yeah.
that deep sense of self-belief.
And that's such a crucial lesson for us, too. It's not just about changing our actions.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner strength.
Yes. That
Yeah.
resilience, that belief in ourselves.
Right. Now, one thing I found really interesting is that as the bride gets closer to her goal, she also starts to question things.
Oh, yeah.
Like her motives for revenge. Remember that scene with Bud?
Yeah.
She could have killed him, but she shows him mercy.
That's a turning point for her.
Yeah. It's like she's realizing that revenge might not be the answer.
Right. Because it keeps you trapped in the past.
Yeah. You're letting those negative emotions control you.
And that's where forgiveness becomes so powerful.
Okay. How so?
It's not about condoning what happened.
Right.
It's about letting go of that anger and resentment.
Oh, I see.
It's about freeing yourself.
So it's that freedom that allows the bride to finally confront Bill.
Exactly. She's not a victim anymore.
Yeah, she's a survivor.
Right. And that final showdown with Bill, it's more than just a fight.
Yeah. What is it then?
It's about confronting the past, coming to terms with it,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately choosing a different path.
And the way she defeats him with that 5-point palm exploding heart technique, it's like she's choosing a path of nonviolence.
It is. It's like she's breaking that cycle of bloodshed.
Yeah, and that's a powerful image for how we can break free from our own destructive habits.
Absolutely. It's about choosing a different way, one that leads to healing and growth.
So Kill Bill, it's not just a revenge film, it's a story about transformation.
Yeah. It's about redemption and realizing that we have the power to change our own stories.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap what we've learned from the bride's journey.
All right. We've seen how she sets clear intentions, builds resilience, cultivates self-compassion,
Yeah.
finds support, and ultimately embraces forgiveness.
And we've learned that even after experiencing trauma, growth is possible.
It is. We all have that capacity for healing and change.
So whether you're trying to break a bad habit or achieve a big goal, remember the bride.
Right.
She shows us that we have the power to rewrite our own stories.
And to create a life that is truly fulfilling.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Kill Bill. We hope you've enjoyed it.
We have, and we'll see you next time.